Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian. We are back. And today's video, what we're doing is while we're close to the, summarizing the top allocated whiskeys of the year, I probably have already aired that video, but at the time of that video, this one was not recorded yet. What I really wanted to do is, so I got a sample of the Remus 5, but I hadn't gotten my own bottle of it. The first time I tried it, I was kind of mixed on it. I didn't really get a lot of the fluff about it. And then trying it on the second time, there were some things that I did like about it. And so as I've been trying to spend more time with it and seeing, does it place in my top whiskeys of the year, I figured I'd put it up against a couple of things. The first one of which I wanted to put up against was the Russell's 13 year. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because there are several bottles this year that all have a similar pocket of flavor. And I think that the Russell's 13 and the Remus 5 both sit in there, along with some other whiskeys as well. Say the Calumet 15, maybe some of the Sam Houston, Bardstown Discovery 6. They all kind of sit in this similar flavor profile for me. And so I just wanted to put these side by side. And I figured as well with this Remus 5 and with everyone talking about, oh yeah, it gives all those old MGP flavors. I figured I would bust out almost the end of one of my favorite MGP products that I've had, which is batch 33 of this OKI Reserve. It is age stated for 10 years, but I think this was right on the edge of being a 12-year pick, or right before they switched over to the 12-year age statement. So I don't have a ton of experience with a ton of old MGP stuff, but I know that the OKI single barrels and reserves that I had, I was very fond of. I will go ahead and say it. This OKI Reserve is not my favorite iteration of those older MGPs. I had some single barrels that I really liked, but of the batches, this one was one of my favorites that I kept coming back to it. So I'm excited to see where the Remus is. I have blinded these samples down below, and we are going to just go through. On the screen, you'll be able to see what it is before I do, and we'll just go down, nose them all, taste them all, and figure out what we think they are and where they rank. Glass A is sweet right away. Kind of these caramel, nougat, sugary notes, a little bit of honey, with a long lingering leathered oak note. Let's go ahead and quickly jump to 2. Two is a little bit more rich, a little bit more maple sweetness, a little bit more butterscotch notes, a little bit deeper, a little bit more spice, a little bit more complexity. I feel like Glass A compared to this, you could tell it had a little bit more sugary sweetness, a little bit more sugary fruit notes. This one definitely sits in the slightly earthy, a little bit more spiced maple profile. Let's go ahead and go to Glass C. Glass C smells as if it's going to have the most amount of spice to it, but it's elegant. It definitely carries a little bit more baking spice, a little more nutmeg, a little more cinnamon, a little bit more citrus. There's definitely some vanilla, some caramel, some oak underneath, but more than anything, I feel like it just carries some maybe brown sugar, maybe dark fruit. Yeah, kind of balanced on the nose, but a little lighter compared to the other two. Let's do another quick nose run through of the glasses. Glass A, honeyed. Glass B, a little bit more dense, a little bit more maple, still on the sweet side. And then Glass C, deeper, a little more rustic toned. There's some like a blueberry, blackberry note there too. But it does seem like it will have the most baking spices balanced in there. Some sugariness in there, some oak in there too. But it's definitely not as intense as the other two glasses. Let's go ahead and go on the palate. Ooh, man, It definitely tingles right away. Does carry some spice, some honey, wine-soaked fruits, a little bit drying on the palate. Does have a good amount of fruitiness mixed with some creaminess, sugary, a little pop of citrus, and then those kind of drying, slightly sour fruit notes carrying into a powdered sugary, fruity, leathery, touch of oak linger. Let's go ahead and go to glass B. Glass B is really similar to A. Glass B is like a tiny bit richer A. Similar notes, a little bit more citrus. It's a little bit more drying on the palate, but the fruit note placement is similar. Chewy, spongy. There it kicks in with this nice leather and oak lingering with kind of a pop of like a citrus essence, like you expressed orange peel. Quickly compare it to A again. And going back to A lot of similarities just with a lot without that kind of citrus expression. It's not as bitter citrus rind like. Very intriguing, very similar to one another. B definitely gets a little bit more robustness, but otherwise pretty close to one another. C's definitely got a little bit more kind of char and some more sweetness coming on the nose once I've tasted the first two. C soaks in the palate right away. Very dense, very coating, even more coating than B actually. B is a little bit more sugary, a little bit more oaky, a little bit more of the citrus. C is very dense, very dark, a lot of antique, oaky, leathery notes, some barrel char, definitely some kind of birch beer, root beer, anise type qualities on the palate. Definitely some dark fruit. It lingers with a lot of spice though on the palate. And what's killing me about C is it has a good amount of spice to it. And these leathery, oaky, woody notes sit on the palate and linger forever. It's definitely one that I could sip and then come back a couple minutes for my next sip. There's a lot of complexity and nuance that continue in the mouth even long after you've had a sip of it. Wow, really, really memorable in that regard. But the sweetness of glasses A and B, if you like something sweeter, is going to be a little bit more enjoyable. Let me go to A from C and see what that's like. Man, the C is still giving me this Kentucky hug though. These all hold their own. A, for as good of flavors as it has, nice and sweet, it just sort of stops when the palate ends. When you're done with your sip, it doesn't really continue, and I just wish it drew out a little bit more. B is super juicy, leaves with a nice linger, and C has again these dark tones, these birch beer, root beer qualities that really leave a unique spice. But I feel like it's the flavors of two that kind of keep giving it up. If I were to rank these, I'd probably say it goes glass B, followed by glass C, followed by glass A. Let's go ahead and reveal what these are. So coming in glass B, 2 dots, that happens to be the OKI Reserve 10-year. Glass C, 3 dots, would be the Russell's 13-year, which would mean that glass A is the sample that we have of Remus 5. Now, there's no knocking any of these pours. They're all very good, and as I assumed when comparing to one another, the flavor pocket is very close. So for that being said, I feel like, Remus is a pretty good winner in this particular flight, knowing that you don't come across these bottles anymore, but also knowing about how hard it was to find the Russell's 13. And the Russell's definitely leaves some of its own unique characteristics to continue to be sought after. But for initially what I had mentioned about how close this OKI and the Remus was, if you're not too caught up on how long a finish lasts, Remus 5 might be a really good alternative for you. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope this was insightful. Let me know if you guys have had older MGP products that you've really enjoyed, what you've thought about the Remus 5 or the Russell's 13. If you want more content, consider supporting the Entry Proof Podcast. You can tune in at entryproofpodcast.com, catch us on our live streams over on Drew P. Whiskies channel, or support us on patreon.com/entryproofpodcast. Get access to our barrel picks, help fund the channels that I'm having here and what Drew is doing over on the Drew P. Whiskey channel. Until next time, everyone, cheers.